and I'll kind of walk you through the process of this. I know the name of the talk is Network Forensics Using Kali Linux and SANS Sift. Pretty much if you have a Debian-based Linux system, most of this will work. A lot of the stuff I'll be doing from command line through Wireshark and terminal. But as far as the operating system that I'll have all this wrapped around today, we'll be using Sift. I used Kali yesterday for the Wireshark stuff. I'll use Sift today, just to kind of give you a taste of what Sift does. So I'm going to go through the setup of Sift, how I'm going to pull it down, how I'll pull in the virtual machine, pull in the files from GitHub, so I'll show you where those are, and then we'll just go through a couple of scenario cases. We'll set up a network miner within Linux if you've never done that before, and we'll see where we're at, go through a couple of scenarios, analyze some malware, and then we'll wrap up and go home. So, just real quick, I wanted to go through a couple of things here, and just of what the talk is all about. But first thing here with me, I just want to let you know who I am. My name is Josh Brunty. I'm an assistant professor of digital forensics and information assurance at Marshall University, right down the river here in Huntington, West Virginia, for you guys who are out of town. In my prior life, I was a digital forensics technical leader and started out as an actual examiner, and then moved to quality assurance manager, which was the paper jockey, and then tech leader of Digital Forensics Lab, which is the West Virginia State Police Lab, based out of Huntington, West Virginia, on Marshall's campus. So they posted a position for a professor in 2012. Happened to be on campus, and I thought, you know what, I can make my days shorter and probably lose a lot less hair not having to look at cases all day long. So made the jump in 2012 and actually started teaching this and haven't looked back. And a lot of what I teach a network forensics course, and when Benny asked me, he's like, hey, you know, would you come in and just give them a taste of what you teach in your network forensics class? I'm like, sure, let's do that. But I teach an Intro to Linux class, I teach mobile device forensics, video and image forensics course, help out with the data recovery and analysis course, because that's my background. That's what I did. I investigated this for a long time. So these are just little tips and tools and techniques that I picked up over the years. I'm a very heavy Linux user as far as, you know, using it every day. I'm not an expert in it by any means, so you know, it's not going to be super high tech in certain cases, but I want you guys that have been using this for a long time to get some knowledge out of it as well, some stuff you never heard of before. I troll Bill Gardner a lot. I always put it in all my presentations, so if you have a chance to troll on him and mess with him, by all means do so. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to set up Sift first thing. The link for Sift is out there, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to pull that down. You really, only thing you'll need is a bash terminal, so if you have Kali Linux or, you know, something of that like, certainly try most of these commands. They should work. Anyways, stable internet browser. We're going to do some stuff. We're going to take some of the stuff that we pulled out of the packet captures. We're going to pull that into some online resources. So you want some kind of internet-connected browser. Usually I'll just use the embedded Firefox browser in Kali or Sift, and that'll work. The course materials, there's a couple of things we can do. I have made a GitHub repository for these, and I'll show you how to pull those down here shortly. And also, you would want to make sure you're running version 2 of Wireshark, which I'll walk you through. So Kali, the newest distro of Kali, for about the past year has been running Wireshark 2, as is. Sift comes with Wireshark 1, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, we'll update it anyway. But the GitHub repository that I have out there is, if you go to my GitHub page, which is www.github.com, /Josh Brunty, all one word, all lowercase. If you go to that particular page, you'll see it on the front page of there. So I pinned them all because I know I'd be going over all this week. So if you click into that repository there for the less technically inclined, you can pull down. I put some Sift cheat sheets in there. I put the slide deck in there in a PDF format. And if you've never used GitHub before, you can either download the files individually by clicking in, and it takes a couple of seconds for this PDF to load up, but eventually it'll render itself to screen. So that's kind of cool. All of these slides that I'll be going through are in that repository. If you want to download the whole repository, you basically can click on that download zip file. And what's going on here?
Yeah, hold on a second. Have we lost your video?
You lost my video.
Yeah, hold on.
I think it's PowerPoint, so I'll try to stay away from that. You can download the zip locally onto your desktop, and it'll pull down that in a nice little Git repository. That's all you have to do for the less technically inclined. If you want to pull it into the Sift, we'll do that here shortly. So I don't think you can see my screen when I'm in PowerPoint. I really hate PowerPoint. So I'm going to try to get out of this as soon as I can. But there's all the stuff that I have, so if you click on that. So I probably showed you stuff on this link here because I see on my screen you probably didn't see any of that. So if you go into a browser, you'll be able to see on my page. Go back and do this again. Okay, so on this, you'll see the Network Forensics GitHub page. If you just find my GitHub repository there, you can download the local zip. I have cheat sheets, I have the slide deck, all that good stuff up there. So you can download them individually, and I even put the PCAP files we're going to go over today, so you can pull all those down if need be. Also at the bottom, another thing I want to bring up, so if you guys kind of get bored and you want to kind of listen to me ambient in the background, there is a forensics challenge that I posted, and the link is active. If you click into that, all I'm asking for is the first name and the last initial. You can register for that challenge. What I'll do is the first submission that comes in with the right answers, I'll give you a signed copy of my book here. So I'll be giving that off to Benny, and tomorrow at the end of the con, I'm just going to attach the name there. Here you go, Benny. This is the first person that submitted. Correct answer. You might even see your. It might give me an email notification that, or you'll notice in the presentation when you submit, it'll send me an email, so you might see that email pop up. My apologies. But that'll be active until the end of the conference. So even if you don't win, go in and play around with it. You can pull down the PCAP for the challenge. It's just a packet capture. You can go through, analyze it, and answer the question. So if you want to do it now, you want to do it later, does not matter. It'll be up and active. So kind of my cool thing that I've added in there this year. But that's certainly out there, and that's in that particular GitHub page. The slide deck and the PCAP files we'll go through. That's the Wireshark dog, but we'll certainly do all this today. So the first thing that I'm going to do is set up, I'm going to go ahead and set up Sift. Sift is a tool that SANS has released for all of their network forensics training. It's basically, I call it a souped up Ubuntu is what it is. It's real easy to download and install, but it has it's an OVA format, so it's an open virtualization format. They will require you to register for an account, but I'll go ahead and tell you they won't spam you with email to death. I signed up for it, so create an account, basically ask for your name and your email address. If you have a fake one, you can use that one as well. It has a login, so basically once you register, they'll give you access to that. You can go in. Let's make sure I don't know if I can remember my password. Just to show you what it looks like in there. They have an OVA file. You basically click on that, you can download it. It doesn't take very long. It's about a 4 gig download, about 4.83, so it's not extremely taxing on your system to pull that down. That's what I'm going to set up, so it's an OVA file. I'm going to go ahead just to kind of put it in overdrive. I've already downloaded this, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to set this up. I'm using a Mac, but if you're using VirtualBox, if you're using VMware for Windows, Fusion for Mac, usually these OVA formats pop in pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is, rather than opening the file, all you have to do is import this. So bear with me. I know some of you guys are working with Windows, so Basically, on all versions of VMware, you just import that virtual machine in. I'm going to import it. Don't have to do any special configuration because we're not going to be doing anything crazy. I'm just going to save it in the default location that it comes in, and it'll import that in and boot for me. So give it a kind of a couple of minutes to do its thing. And while that's running, a couple of things that I want to talk about. These are the things that we're going to do. So I want to zoom in on these so you can see exactly what we'll cover here. So the first lab that I'm going to go through is just a standard packet investigation and file extraction. We're going to use that evidence1.pcap. I'm going to show you how to parse through using filters in Wireshark. We're going to use ngrep. For you guys that have used grep before, if you've never used ngrep, it's a really, really cool alternative for parsing through pcap files. So we'll do it. We'll do some Wireshark filtering. We'll do some frame searching, and then we'll run it through ngrep as well. I'll also just show you how to set up Network Miner. Now, Network Miner, I always tell the students back at the university, it's kind of like a script kiddie version of packet analysis, but it is a Windows-based tool. I'm going to use Mono to set it up in Linux. So because it's a standalone executable, I'll walk you through the process to run that Windows executable within Linux. So even though it's Network Miner, I'll show you how to run standalone Windows programs in Linux. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1. The second lab, we're going to break down an exploit kit, which is really, really popular in the wild right now. Exploit kits, and I'll explain here shortly, is what compromises most websites that are out there. These are the things that we're seeing some of the newer variations of ransomware coming in as. So I want to show you the exact process of how you would break down a compromised website if you had a packet capture of it, and how could you determine what type of exploit kit is attacking that particular site and what's being unpacked within your network. We're going to use Wireshark, VirusTotal, and Network Miner for that one. Specifically Wireshark and VirusTotal. So the third lab, if time permits, I have a nice little shell script utility that's out there that's in my GitHub repository that I use to extract system info. Basically, it's a shell script that you guys can take and obliterate and use it for your own automated stuff within your network. So even though I collect a lot of system information, if you all have not learned how to use shell scripts just yet, learn. Because Windows 10 has now incorporated Bash. If you learn shell scripting, you can directly import many of those shell scripts into Bash. It's coming. So you see the logical progression here. If you learn shell scripting, you make your life a lot easier down the road. So some resources while that's pulling in. Also, I mentioned this yesterday. This was in the intro to Wireshark Talk. Wireshark 101 is a good book to kind of pick up and kind of learn simple Wireshark stuff. The second book, which is I'm going to pull some exercises from, this is Jonathan Hamm and Sherry Davidoff. This is the book that we use in our program. It's a network forensics book. It's a little bit dated. It gets into traditional packet analysis, but very, very good baseline if you're wanting to get into network traffic analysis. This has a lot of stuff in it. It starts out very basic, and then it takes off after a couple of chapters. I've been using it for years in classes, and I'm still learning from it to this day. So we're gonna kind of port some exercises over that are in this book and kind of give you a taste of that. Another book that I like as well is the Network Security Monitoring, the No Starch book, which is also a very heavy Wireshark Network Miner book. So it's also a good book. I didn't bring it up with me today, but also something to pick up. Another one that has a lot of Wireshark and ngrep filters, snort filters. You should have this on your bookshelf if you're remotely interested in this. Is the Blue Team Field Manual. You all have heard of the Red Team Field Manual. The Blue Team Field Manual just came out probably early this year, maybe. It has a lot of command, terminal, bash utilities, some things you can run in Windows. A lot of the stuff that I covered today is found, the commands are found in this particular book here. So nice little bookshelf edition there to add in. So hopefully my virtual machine has imported in by now. So I'm going to go ahead and just let it boot up for the first time. It's asking me to upgrade. Sure, why not upgrade? It's brand new. Hopefully it doesn't bork here. It borked on me earlier. It did not like the fact that I upgraded the VM, so we'll see what happens here. They've recently upgraded Sift from an Ubuntu 14 to Ubuntu 16, so I haven't fully test drove this yet, but for the most part it seems to be pretty stable. It does come with the default SANS Forensics, and if you ever used Ubuntu, it looks exactly like Ubuntu, so just a different wallpaper. The default login for the account is found there. It's Forensics, so basically just kind of do some initial house cleaning here. I'm going to set up the interface. Now, by default, Sift comes with a lot of like cheat sheets and how to, the memory forensics cheat sheet. There's a network forensics cheat sheet that comes pre-installed on the desktop. So if you guys want to use those or need those, that comes built into that OVA file. So when you build that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and trash these because I don't want to see them on my desktop. I'm also just going to unlock some stuff from the launcher because I just don't want to see Office programs there. I'm real kind of weird on that. So what I'm going to do now is basically I'm going to move on to the next, well, if I get those, hopefully we'll be able to ignore those. It's going to try to do some updates to there. I'm going to do a remind me later. I don't want to bork my install here trying to do upgrades in the middle of a talk. So normally under normal circumstances you would certainly want to update that before you moved on. First thing that I'm going to install here, and there's a typo in the PDF, and rather than upgrading the PDF, if that command will not work, you want to put a dash in complete. I did not catch that before I updated that. So if you're trying to install Mono, that's why it's not going to work. But you all have access to this, and I'm going to show you how to get access to all these files and port them directly into Kali for you, or Kali or Sift or whatever you're running. So the easiest way to do that, and I wish Ubuntu would go ahead, so I'm going to pull some stuff over to my, because I know I'm going to be going to the terminal a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and just type in this Ubuntu hole here. Somebody called this like the Ubuntu glory hole. And I was like, no, that's a little too risque there. I don't know what they call that. It's like the Oracle or something, but I had a student. I'm like, no, student, no, you don't call it that. We'll call that like the button to everything. So I'm going to zoom in on this just so you guys can see this. The first thing I'm going to do is pull down that GitHub repository. So I'm going to type in Git Clone. That's that GitHub repository that I took you to. And I'm going to type in http www.github.com/me, which is Josh Brunty, and this, which is HackerCon 8. If I can remember this. Can I remember this? I'm just trying to remember a link, guys. I make these links way too long, and I'm like, oh, I'll remember that, no problem. HackerCon 8_network forensics. I know I'm awful. I should keep all that in lowercase, but so what that will do is that'll should clone that GitHub repository into your home folder.
It's asking for a username.
Is it asking for a username?
Yeah. Will be.
Oh. Is it asking all of you guys for
Yeah.
it? You shouldn't. Are you doing HTTP or HTTPS?
HTTP. Git Clone.
GIT. Let's take it. It should
Oh, I
be.
spelled forensics wrong.
Yeah, when it prompts you for a username, it's probably But what that will do, guys, is when you do that Git clone, that will pull that HackerCon 8, that entire repository, into whatever directory you're wanting it to pull down in. So the slide deck, the cheat sheets, and the PCAP files all get kind of pulled down in one fell swoop. So Git clone, Git space clone, HTTP, www.github.com/Josh Brunty /hacker with the E is a 3, con is capitalized, 8_network forensics. That's the toughest part, because once you get that, then you can go through these slides here. Then you should be able to see that entire PDF slide deck. So if you miss a step in there when I do this mono install, you already have that PDF file. So I put all the steps in there for you. Because I'm gonna drive a little fast to get Network Miner down. So, but I realize some of you guys are just setting this up or have never seen Linux for the first time before. So I don't want to leave you guys behind either. I put in some TCP dump and Wireshark cheat sheets as well that have a lot of the cool Wireshark filters. So those are yours to keep. And I took those Sift cheat sheets and put them in there for you too. In the README file, that Forensics Challenges link is in there, so you can just directly copy that and paste it into Firefox within your Sift or your Kali browser. So you all have that now. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here real quick. And I am going to now install Mono so I can bring in Network Miner. So I'll show you how to do that. So first thing here is I'm going to type in a sudo apt-get install mono-complete. Now remember, I talked about in the PowerPoint the dash is not in there. That's just something I totally missed. Bring it back to Intake. It should pull down. Now, what mono is, and it'll ask, give me a yes, say yes. Mono is kind of, if you've ever used Wine before, it allows you to run Windows-based programs within Linux, especially standalone executables that don't have dependencies to install. I like Mono a little bit better than Wine because it has a smaller footprint. You're saying that's a pretty big footprint that it's installing right now, but it's very stable. So if you have like any hash calculators or any standalone executables that are that you like to run in Windows and you want to run that in Linux, I have a Windows computer here, but I'm becoming very anti-Windows lately. I guess it's just for whatever reason, but I'll let this do its thing. It'll take it.
Maturity goes.
The older I get, the more I enjoy the command line, right? Once it finishes up, it'll finish up. So it's just a standard install mono-complete. And clear my screen out, so type in clear, and it'll erase the whiteboard. So now, with Mono installed, I can pull down the Network Miner repository. So I'm going to do that through a wget command. So run widget, or whatever you want to call it. I just call it wget. Call it what it is. I'm going to type in netrasec.com. It's the first line in that PowerPoint. I want to do a / and I'm going to type in download equals Network Miner, and make sure the M in Network Miner is capitalized. I brought back all of mine. And then I'm going to do a space and do an O option. Make sure that's a capital O. Just so it won't work. Sometimes it won't work with a lowercase o. I'm going to send this to my temp folder. So a TMP folder, if you're using any kind of like scripts or you're pulling any third-party utilities, pull it into your temp folder in Linux, because that's an unused folder in Kali or Ubuntu or Sift. It's a good place to put programs if you're installing. So out of just good Linux hygiene, we're going to put it in there. And I'm going to put a front slash, and I'm going to type in nm, or nm for network miner .zip. Now what that's going to do is that's going to pull down that zip repository, which is network miner from, so it's a zip file, so it'll take a few seconds to download. And it should save that to the temp folder within Linux. So once that finishes up, it should take just a couple of seconds. I want to change the privileges on that. So but before I change the privileges, it's a zip file. I need to unzip it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sudo unzip command. So sudo unzip. I'm going to do a front slash with tmp to point to that temp folder. Another front slash nm.zip. Not done yet. Do another space, and I'm going to do a D, which is basically a D option to basically unzip it in this directory called opt. Or, yeah, we'll put it in the opt directory. And close that out with another front slash. So sudo space unzip space front slash temp tmp front slash nm.zip space dash D, and then with a front slash of opt. Hit enter. What it'll do is it will unpack that entire zip file into that folder. Now we're going to change into that directory. So just to kind of clean it up, I'll clear that out. I'm going to do a CD now into a front slash of opt. So I'm going to change into that directory, and I'm going to type in network miner. Now, rather than having to type out what version of it is, a little Linux tip there, if you put a star at the end of that, if you know like part of the name of a directory or a file, you can change into that directory. And I don't know what version of network miner they're running, so I just guessed, and it looks like it's 2.2. So now we're in that particular directory. So I'm just going to show you what's in there. So in there you have some DLL files and networkminer.exe. In order for this to run correctly, what I need to do is I need to run some chmod privileges now to change how the program runs. So just some basic Linux here. I'm going to type in chmod, and I'm going to change this particular folder to executable. Now you all have these options here in that PowerPoint. I put them step by step. So do networkminer.exe. So I'm going to do chmod x to change that to executable so we can execute that. Oh, need to do a sudo in front of that. So sudo chmod. Next thing I'm also going to do is I'm going to do a sudo chmod. I'm going to run a -r. I'm going to take away the read privileges, and I'm going to do a go plus, there we go, W. I'm going to do assembled files. I know this will go on the next line. So oh, nope, made it. So sudo chmod space with an uppercase R, go plus W. We're changing privileges of that assembled files. Last thing I need to do here is sudo chmod -r go plus W captures, and I'm going to type and close out that with the front slash. So what I've just done is I've changed the privileges of those three, the networkminer.exe, changed the privileges of the assembled files, and changed the privileges of the captures in order for that to run correctly. Now, all I have to do is I just have to change into that directory now in order for that to run. So we're going to go back and use this later, but all I need to do now is just type in mono and network miner .exe. And now I have Network Miner, which is a Windows-based program that we're going to use to parse through packet captures here shortly, running within Linux. So that should run within Kali just fine. If you had some problems with it, we'll go through and try to fix it for you, great. Or go through that I think it's the 5th or 6th slide in that sequence of packets there, or not sequence packets, but in that slide set. So all of that's right there for you. Questions up to this point? All right. So now that we have our box set up pretty much, the next thing I'm going to do is I also want to see what version of Wireshark is running. So usually I like to run this from the command line. I'm just going to run sudo Wireshark. It should be running, or it should already have installed Wireshark version 2. So it's looking like it's running Wireshark 2.2.6. I'm not going to upgrade it. Shouldn't have to, but if you're running version 1, one thing that you want to do is just do an apt-get space install Wireshark and upgrade it to 2. But if you pull down the newest Sift build, it'll have Wireshark 2 in it. The newest Kali build has Wireshark 2, so we shouldn't have to do anything. I'm going to leave that window open so I don't have to go back and change into that directory. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of lay out the scenario of what we're going to be doing. So I thought, you know what, better than, just going through a bunch of slides and showing you how stuff is done, let's actually have a scenario where we walk through this. So let me put the scenario out here. So after being released on Bell, Andor Covered had disappeared. Apologies for the names, just the way fake events go. Fortunately, investigators were carefully monitoring her network activity before she skipped town. It is believed that Anne may have communicated with her secret lover, Mr. X, before she left, says the police chief. The packet capture may contain clues to her whereabouts. So here's some information, and this is what we refer to as the first scenario that we're going through. So evidence1.pcap is this particular scenario. So I'm going to give you a little background of what the network is set up as. So we have an internal network that is running 192.168.30.0. So it has a scope of IPs between 0 and 24. So this is a really small network. We only have 25 IPs to set through. There's a DMZ as well, so we have a DMZ of 10.30.30.0, and it's also a very small DMZ with 25 machines in that DMZ. So if you see any 10.30.30 IPs, that's basically everything that sits in the DMZ. Firewalls, any extraneous devices or anything. Any 172 IPs we'll just treat as outside internet. So if you're going back through and practicing with this, any who-is information that you would happen to dig on this, it's not going to come back. This was intentionally set up. This is non-routable traffic. So if you ever want a fake IP scope to set up and want to scrub IPs out, just change them over to the 172.30 subnet, and you can. That's basically the reserved subnet for non-routable. So let's pull in this particular evidence. So I'm going to open this up just in Wireshark, and our laptop has the MAC address of 00.0021 ending in 4FAE. So I'm going to see if it'll let me copy that. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead. I think I had Wireshark open, didn't I? Let me just drag that down to the bar here so I can go search it up here, and let's just open that up. I'm going to go to I'm going to do the poor man's way of opening it up. I'm going to find that folder, and I'm going to just drag in evidence1.pcap. So I'll see this right here. So you should be seeing something like this pop up. This is roughly about a 2,400 capture packet here, so it's a really small subset. Real world, real life, 24 hours of packet capturing is going to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of packets. So for sake of not screwing up here, you know how live demos work. They could, you can either do or die by live demos. So first thing is I want to figure out some of the answers to these questions. So some of the things that I need to come up with is any online aliases or addresses that may have been used by the suspect. Who did they communicate with? So some email addresses, some contents of conversations that she's had. Did she transfer any files of interest? And are there any indicators of her whereabouts? So I'm going to use multiple programs for this. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get an overall lay of the land. Okay? So I'm just going to get rid of that. I want to find out what her machine name is. So first thing before I get too deep into this, let's just see what we have here. And let's look at some of the information that we know of, which is the MAC address, right? So let's say I want to search out the MAC address. I'll type in ETH. This is from our Wireshark stuff yesterday. I'm going to do an ETH.addr, which is a common filter in Wireshark. That'll show me the MAC addresses that I want to specify. In this case, we have a MAC address. So I'm going to paste that MAC address that I copied out earlier. Go ahead and hit, and now I should have, looks like 82.3%, looks like 22,000 of the 2,400 packets are attributed somehow, some way to that Ethernet address. Either they went up, either up or down. I want to know the machine name as well. So an easy way to filter out machine information is type in NBNS. So what NBNS will give me is any NetBIOS name services that were popping up. So let's say you have a packet capture, you're sniffing out. I'm getting a little bit off base here, but let's say that you have a massive amount of packet captures and you need to see what machines ping this particular network during this packet capture. NBNS is a really nice way to delimit out traffic. Does anybody know what NBNS is? I just said it, but what's NetBIOS name service? What happens during that process? System admins out there helping.
It's Windows 540.
So they're broadcasting, like, here my name is.
Yeah. So remember, to have routable traffic when it connects to the network, it's using an NBNS protocol in order to broadcast its machine name to the router that it's connecting to, or the access point, or whatever, and then it routes that traffic through. So if you look here, you'll see name queries, and you'll see registrations of what IP address was allocated to this particular machine. Now obviously this bubbles up to the top here. You can see that NB and -laptop is allocated what IP address. It looks like it's connecting to the router of 192.168.30.255. Well, what is that right there? That's her IP address, because that's attributing back to her machine. So I can pretty much say now that 192.168.30.108 is her IP address. So now I have her machine name, which is and-laptop, so that's one piece of evidence. The IP address that she's broadcasting as is 192.168.30.108, good information to have. And I also know that I can use that as filters later on. So the nice part about Wireshark is I can just right-click and I can apply anything in here as a filter. So you can see by limiting out the IP address here, I've whittled my filters down, or whittled my traffic down to 43% traffic. So you can see that some of that going down through there is traffic that should be attributed to her. Now remember, IP addresses change, so you got to be careful about attributing to that as well. Another thing that we can run is we can go back and do her MAC address again. And if you put in these filters once, they'll save. So if you limit out her MAC address once and you type in close to that filter, you can bring these back up again. Another thing I can do is I can use a boot P part of that filter as well. So what do we got here? What is this?
What does the boot P filter do?
It's a bootstrap protocol.
Okay.
So what's basically going on there? What 4 packets did it pull out as far as protocol is concerned? It's a DHCP protocol. So what's going on there? Yeah, so this is the DHCP ACK in the 3-way handshake here. So this is Ann's computer taking a request back from DHCP, that ACK request, that's basically the DHCP server saying, here you go, here is the response here from the DHCP server. So there's a DHCP request and a DHCP acknowledgement from the Cisco router there. Just something to kind of pull in there. Now, what about just word searches? So that's just a couple of things you can run to attribute machines in packet captures. So we got IP address, we got the DHCP acknowledgement there from that MAC address. So that pretty much tells us there's the DHCP request. What else do we have that we could do in Wireshark as far as intelligence-wise? What do we have that we know already? Common sense is going to tell you from that scenario. We have an IP address, but let's think a little lower level than that. I mean, just think of stuff. Her name. We have her name. I mean, that's great. If you have a virus, malware that you know the name of, here's a really cool filter I showed you guys in Wireshark yesterday. Type in a frame contains and recover. Do we get anything there? Yeah, maybe. Somewhat. No. Let's try it. Nope. How about frame contains and? Yeah, we have 30 packets in there that have the word "and" in it. And we see some stuff. Now, this is the limitations of Wireshark, because I can do dirty word searches all day with the frame contains filter. So any words that I have that I want to see inside the frame, and when I'm talking about the frame, this is in that data frame somewhere that it mentions the word "and." So this is the payload of the packet. The data within the packet somewhere contains the word "and" in it. So if you're just kind of grasping for straws and saying, look, I need something to give me something, you can do a frame contains if you have that kind of intel. But this is the limitation of Wireshark here. And this is why I'm going to flip over and show you some other stuff that we can do here. There is a secondary utility called ngrep that will let me search this. Have you guys ever used grep before? Some of you guys use grep? You'll love ngrep because I'm a huge grep. I'm a grep connoisseur. So I don't have any of my college students in here, and they're like grep, you know, whatever. But it's very useful. So I'm going to go back to I'm going to launch a new terminal window, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that packet capture open, just kind of let it linger in the background. And I'm going to do a CD, what's my folder name there? I'm going to do an LS, it's HackerCon. I can do a CD, and I'll just type in hack, do a star, and it should take me into that folder. And what I want to do is I have that packet capture evidence 1 in there, in that folder, so I ran an LSL. What I'm going to do is I'm going to point ngrep to this particular packet capture. Ngrep should be built in to Kali or Sift. So I'm going to type in Ngrep. And I'm going to type the word and, recover, in quotes. Make sure that you capitalize this. I'm going to close the quotes out. Sorry, I zoomed in, so it'll go down to the next line. So Ngrep space, I'm going to do double quotes here, and recover. I'm going to do an option of n, space, option, lowercase t. I'm going to try to normalize this as much as I can. A space of Q, a space of I, and what the I is going to do is tell me what to point that to. So I'm going to type in evidence, was it 01? Yeah, evidence1 dot pcap. So Ngrep space and recover in double quotes, close out those quotes, space with an uppercase N, option dash, space dash T, space dash Q, space dash uppercase I. So Josh, what do those mean? I'll show you the man page here shortly. Hit enter. What this will do is, Ngrep is a packet parsing utility, so it basically runs exactly like grep does, except that it parses the packets at the packet level. You see anything in there that might be of relevance to us here?
Going swimming.
Email.
It looks like, hi sweetheart, bring your fake passport and your bathing suit. Looks like it cut off the end of that. But look, there's a conversation from a 192.168. Look, what is that?
It's like an email.
That is an email header.
HTTP, yeah.
That's an SMTP email header in that. So just by searching her name in Ngrep, I picked up her SMTP email header. So you never know where you're going to find it. So, you know, you may have a packet capture that you have no idea what you're looking at initially, but by Ngrepping dirty words, you may open up your case wide open. Now remember, in Wireshark, it's hard to get to that point. So it looks like we have some more intel to throw here. So what can we pull out of this? Well, we have her name. Look at that. What is that? Sneaky geeky at AOL. There's her email address. Who was she communicating to?
AOL.
Mr. Secrets at AOL.com. Sorry for the cheesiness of the email addresses, but hey, we're going to have fun, right? Let's have some fun. So all of this stuff here says, hi, sweetheart, bring your fake passport and bathing suit. Address attached. Okay, so remember that. Got some HTML encoding here, which tells me that this is an HTML formatted email. This is about as far as I want to go in Ngrep right now. Because, man, that's a lot right there. I have an email address. I have Mr. Secrets. I have, okay, looks like an attached, possibly an attached file in this email. Might have some stuff here. So I'm going to throw some multiple tools at that. So I'm just going to minimize that, and I'm going to go back to Wireshark, back to my packet capture again. Remember yesterday that I had you guys to break down the protocols based upon statistics. So what I can do now is I can go under statistics and protocol hierarchy. So under statistics in that packet capture, go under protocol hierarchy. What do you see in there that just sticks out like a sore thumb now? You see the TCP, but look, check this out. Look at that. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. You also have another protocol, which is an IMAP protocol, and the HTTP protocol showing up. Now, for you email gurus out there, what's the difference between Simple Mail Transfer and Internet Message Access Protocol, SMTP and IMAP?
There's two different versions of IMAP and
Now remember, with email protocols, SMTP is their sending protocol, right? So all outbound email from this machine is going to be sent from her account through SMTP. All incoming mail is going to be sent through IMAP. So I can filter out that 3% traffic there and get all incoming mail coming to her, which is probably that response from Mr. Secrets there coming to her machine. But if I want to see what she's sending out, and if I've caught that traffic, there's an SMTP filter. Now, all I need to do now is right-click and apply that as a filter, as selected. There's all your SMTP traffic filtered out in Wireshark for you. Now, let's go a step further here. So I've copied out SMTP. I'm just going to close this out. If there is any reason to secure email, I'm going to show you right now why you should embed encryption into email. Because I'm going to show you exactly some of the inherent vulnerabilities that exist with SMTP. So after I filtered that out, and that's just a simple SMTP, filter that out in Wireshark, hit enter, there's what you have. You can even see that there's a Hilo crest coming there from and laptop, so we know we're on the right trail there. But I'm going to go to that very first filtered packet. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to follow, and I'm going to follow that TCP string. Now remember from yesterday, for you guys that kind of sit through Wireshark, what's the difference between the blue and the red here? The blue is what is incoming, and the red is what's what? Outgoing, right? Check out this stream of data here. So we have an auth login here, and what with the word auth login, we have this encoded information here that comes through that follows shortly after that. Let's find out what this is. I'm going to right click that and copy it. I'm going to fire up a new terminal over here. Let's figure out what that is. Well, actually, I'll just show you what it is. So I'm going to zoom in. You guys can walk through this with me. You're going to copy out that C251Y, which is right under the auth login there. So you have a 334 VXN C25. Copy out that C25 there. So what I'm going to do here is, that looks like that's running some type of encoding there. So my gut tells me, just by looking at it or eyeballing it, that's probably like a base 64 encoding, which is usually what a lot of just straight up SMTP, HTTP encoding uses. So in order to decode something in terminal, all I need to do is just type in an echo command. I'm going to put in quotes, and I'm going to paste that particular value that I just pulled out of there with the equal sign and everything. I'm going to close out those two quotes there. I'm going to do a space. I'm going to put in a pipeline, which is right on most keyboards right above your enter key with shift. Do another space. Call it base 64. So that way I can tell it what encoding to use, and I'll do D. So I'll do a D output. Now, I don't like the way it puts in the line here, but you can see it outputs to that line sneaky geeky. What do you think that is? That's her username. That's her username inputting into an HTTP page. So if gut tells you that C25 is username, what do you think comes next? It's not hard to figure out. Look, you see a CZ and then it says authentication successful. Let's do the same thing, copy. I'm going to hit the up arrow. I'm going to echo that back. I'm just going to go back and delete out that key there, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste that value in. Hit enter. There's her password. Base 64 encoded. Now I have her email password. Good intel from a PCAP file. Now, how do you stop this for you guys that are working security? I know this is a security conference. what are some stuff that we can do to combat someone doing this to us? Let's get away from the forensics here for a second. Put some security into this. We encrypt. We can encrypt the traffic. We can also flip over to HTTPS. So we force the web page that's authenticating into an SSL. So if you're running email authentication through just straight up HTTP, stop it and flip over to HTTPS. If you remember when the Snowden documents actually dropped, email or Gmail shortly after that took their authentication from HTTP to HTTPS for that very reason. So for the most part, most email clients are safe from this now, but there's still a few email clients that are organizations that still push all of their data through HTTP, and that can be picked up pretty easily. So the stacking encryption on top of other stuff is a good way to counterbalance someone just picking up these passwords. So that's one place to start. Now, since I have her username, I have her password, I have her IP address, I have her MAC address, I have her machine name, I have that email that she sent where she's putting on her bathing suit. But the next thing that I need to get is she said she had attached something to that email. Okay, so this is where Wireshark kind of fails in my opinion, because it's really hard to extract files out of particular packets, especially Word files. Now, yesterday, if you export objects out, you can export HTTP objects. So you can go to File and export those out, but I don't see anywhere in there where the attached email document is located in there. So it'll extract images and stuff out of HTTP and HTTP formatted documents, but it does not take out stuff that's attached in emails. So what I want to do is I want to go back to my terminal here, and I want to, remember I kept that window open. I want to go back to Network Miner. And if anything, this is where Network Miner has a useful place in digital forensics or network forensics. So I'm going to go ahead and just run Network Miner again. Remember, that's just a command. I have to be in that opt folder of Network Miner 2.2. So that's why I kept that window open, so I don't have to go back and CD back into that directory again. So if you had some trouble running it, I'm going to do a mono, and I'm just going to run network miner.exe, and that should fire up Network Miner. Real easy program to use. I'm just going to do a file and open. I'm going to point to, now realize that this sees that as a Windows machine, so it's kind of hard to navigate through this sometimes because it tries to see it as a Windows-based machine.
If you go to personal.
Yeah, you can go to personal, yeah. I wasn't sure where the folder location. Usually I just drag it in. There. I'm lazy.
That was evidence 1.pcap, right?
Yeah, evidence1.pcap. You can just drag it in once you start it up. The thing about Network Miner is that it will parse through most of this for you. So any images or messages that happen to get sent through here, email messages that she had sent from that AOL account, it parsed for you. So you're like, why did you even mention Wireshark? Because sometimes Network Miner decodes these wrong. So, but you can see all of the email conversations here. You also see the HTML formatted emails with the attachments in them. So if you find the right email address, you can see somewhere in there. Where is it? Yeah. Is it the very last one? Yeah. Bring your fake passport in a bathing suit. Address attached. Love, Ann. You see it down there in the bottom? secret rendezvous.docx, so you find it down in here in the messages. You can also find it in files because it also carves these files back together. So if you're looking for a Word document, one of the easy ways to do there is just we can filter out based upon the document itself. There's a secret rendezvous.docx, which was attached in that email. If you double click on that, it should open. Actually, no, right click on that and open the file. Meet me at the fountain near the rendezvous point. Bringing all the cash. It's just a screenshot in a Word document. So incriminating, right? So, I mean, that's the Word document. So if they send a ledger or an Excel spreadsheet or something, Network Miner will carve it out for you. Any images, if they're viewing not so great stuff or they're attaching pics to their stuff, there's the credentials where they looks like they've logged into multiple services. There's the sneaky geeky. It does not show the password there for SMTP and IMAP. What sessions were established. Very easy, simple to use tool. But it's good for parsing PCAP files. You don't really get much easier than that. You can also do keyword searches. So I can do like undercover and add that and search it, and it will reload that file, hopefully, maybe. Because it's running in Linux, it may be like, reload it and try it again. Yeah, so it's a little bit too long. So, reload case files. Yeah, I can search for any instance of ant within there as well. Cool little tool. I like it. You can run that in Windows too. If anything, it's a free utility. So, everything that I'm using here today, guys, is free. This is not a multi-$1,000 setup. This is something that you can start spinning up and using tomorrow. So, I think that's a really cool aspect of a lot of this stuff. All right, so let's kick it there. That's pretty much the end of the first scenario. I don't know how much more we can come up with as far as answer-wise. Basically, the answers to that one is pretty straightforward. Any indicators of Anne's whereabouts? Well, she was in Playa del Carmen in that map, obviously. Did Anne transfer any files of interest? Yeah, that's secret rendezvous.doc. There's her contents was in that SMTP conversation. Who did she communicate with? That was that Mr. Secret, that email address we were looking for earlier, and any online aliases or addresses, which that comes back to that sneaky geeky at AOL. So we got all of those checked off on that answer key. So if you want to dig more into that, there's a lot more into that particular scenario, but it's a pretty good skill sharpening exercise. You can do a lot in there. So you guys have that packet capture now. And what we'll do is let's take about 10 minutes. It is 2:13 now, I think. 2:12. Let's pick back up at 2:22, 2:20, something like that. And then we'll do the second scenario in this, which is malware analysis. Take a second there, because I know some of you guys. We good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to go ahead and jump back into this. That way we can finish up. It's, we're supposed to go until 5. Alright, you guys, we'll get through this and we'll wrap it up a bit early. That way you guys can go out and play and obliterate the voting machines and pick some locks and solder some stuff. It's pretty chill out there right now. So this one's fun, and this is one of the many scenarios that we go through. This mimics a lot of what's out there. There's a particular site that Brad Duncan runs. I always try to plug Brad Duncan's site because he does a lot of postings on there, and he puts a lot of stuff up. But it's basically him visiting compromised websites and then doing walkthroughs of those particular scenarios. The website that you post to is malwaretrafficanalysis.net. So you can go out and Google that if you want. But that's my practice, my go-to practice. So rather than binge watching Netflix, sometimes I'll just go out to the site, pick a scenario, go through it, walk myself through it, learn some new stuff, and kind of stay up to speed on some of the newer exploits that are out there, because they're really, really getting heavy. But this particular walkthrough here is one of the exploit kits that really, really, really hit us heavy in late 2015, early 2016. Exploit kits is probably one of the newest attack vectors that we're seeing now, mainly because there's so much involved in it. So even though we've moved over from this one kit to another, the signatures of these are primarily the same. There's not really much difference between them. So this particular scenario that we're getting ready to go through, I'm going to set a stage for it, is just what is an exploit kit. So an exploit kit is the malicious toolkit that literally goes out and looks for security holes in applications we commonly use. For example, Adobe Reader, Flash, JavaScript, all the stuff that we have to have on our machines is going to go after. And primarily this is for the purpose of unpacking and spreading malware packages. Usually this is pre-written exploit code. I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, but probably over 50% of the time, this is usually a JavaScript exploit. But it comes through in different packages. So for example, a lot of the ransomware stuff that we saw hit us pretty heavily last year came through as an exploit kit. So what I thought, putting this together last year and this year, is, okay, let's see what this looks like on the wire. To us that are trying to stop this, it's important for us to know what this looks like under the hood. So they basically target outdated software applications. That's obvious. And while in the process of becoming exploited by one of these kits, they'll vary, but they usually go a lot like this. So you either have a normal website, a compromised website, or a spam link. One of the three usually happens. Normally, you'll have a redirect through a malicious advertisement, which it could be a pop-up, it could be a DNS spoof, DNS redirect, something along those lines that redirects the DNS into something a little off-kilter. Normally, it's just DNS redirects. So you have a web page that has been compromised, and then they just spoof the redirect, throws them out to another website. Some of the newer, more gnarly ones that are out there, I presented at a B-Sides conference earlier this year, where a particular website got popped. The server that they were hosting on got popped. They literally replaced the executable with a malware-laden executable that the users would go in and download that executable from that site. So they were literally spreading malware to hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of users because of that malware package executable that these users were constantly downloading. The scary part of that was that the executable that was being downloaded from that site was digitally signed by Symantec, which, if you know anything about file signatures and signing authorities, if a file is signed by a certificate signing authority, what does antivirus usually do with it? It whitelists it. So none of the antivirus clients were picking this up at all. So that's another reason why a lot of these exploit kits are kind of going undetected, because we're compromising, rather than trying to compromise each individual user, let's compromise the top level, and then we'll spread it by whatever means we can. But the website redirect is obviously one that is pretty popular. And then that exploit server kit, which is usually like reverse shell, rootkit, or something along those lines, will redirect to ransomware, banking Trojan, malware, you name it. Whatever package that needs to be unpacked in that exploit kit will unpack itself. And that's normally the infection phase, so you don't see much. So normally in that process, the whole end game of this is to unpack a malicious payload that will allow me to take control of the user or to push malware out. In this case, we saw it with ransomware. Let's eat your files and require a Bitcoin transaction to provide the public key to reverse that transaction. So this is the process of that, basically. You look at ransomware, 100% of the time, antivirus does not stop it because it's so new. They're digitally signed. They have a certificate signing authority. They get through, and so you can't rely on antivirus alone to protect this. I had a couple of users at conferences that I presented at this past year like, well, if you have antivirus, you're protected against some of these executables coming in. No, you're not. You're not. Well, if antivirus picks it up, I'll just respond to that threat. Your SIM is not going to pick these up. Your antivirus is not going to pick these up. Any of your blinky box lights that you have in the server cabinet, chances are not going to pick this up. So you're really going to have to sift through these by hand, chances are, if you detect any anomalous activity in a breach. So that's why we're going back to kind of the old-fashioned, traditional traffic analysis in most cases. Indiana County government. This was back in November of last year. Paid up to get ransomware off the machine. These are taxpayer dollars. This is money that we pay taxes to, and they're turning around and paying Bitcoin to get ransomware off of their machines. It's like, really? Wow. Okay. So these things happen. Here's one just a couple of weeks ago. If you guys remember the Crunchyroll hack. Exactly what I just talked about. Crunchyroll got compromised, so by visiting the site with a DNS redirect, it was literally unpacking malware to every single user that was visiting that site. How many people, I couldn't tell you how many people go to Crunchyroll. I'm not a Crunchyroll person myself. But literally were prompted by just visiting that DNS site after the redirect to download malware. This is just, what, a couple of weeks ago? That's as recent, as current as we can get right there. So you don't have to go beyond Crunchyroll to find out that this is what's happening. Now, what I'm getting ready to lay out here is, and this is the presentation back from Kansas City. This was in B-Sides, Kansas City. So if you guys, I put the link in there. If you need to put your kids to sleep at night or something, and you need some bedtime music so they can fall asleep, you can go through and watch that. The ambient noise was really bad in that one. But it walks through the process that a hacker had used to compromise Ask.com. And this was direct research that was done with the guys, if you remember, if you're familiar with Red Canary and I'm trying to think, Carbon Black had done some research on that as well. So I actually had the privilege of teaming up with some folks from Carbon Black and talking to them, and some really cool stuff that they had done in terms of that. So I kind of used their research, Red Canaries, and then my own, and put that presentation together. So it was really cool. It's a cool little presentation. Here's the exploit kit. So just to lay out the scenario, we have a DC-based company, Clinton Incorporated. Their SOC center, an analyst received a call from Billy Gardner, who's an executive assistant for your CEO, William, also known as Billy Clinton, at the UK office. I'm terrible coming up with names for these. While searching for a tasty steak dinner location for his boss, Billy, who is Billy with an IE, discovered the computer is acting funny and files inaccessible. He also stated that the desktop wallpaper had been changed and said something about ransom and paying up. And you probably heard that from users before. You're like, ooh, not good. And there's a picture of Billy there behind Billy. This is Billy with a Y. This is Billy with an IE. So I was hoping Bill Gardner said he was going to come in and sit in on this, but he didn't. So you'll have to write him on that one. This code all goes back to the full packet capture that I gave you all of evidence2.pcap. So what we're going to do is we're going to break that down and determine exactly what happened. We're going to get the date and the time of the activity, the IP address of the computer, the MAC address, the IP address, and the domain name that generated the traffic. We're also going to look at what website the user looked at, what website that they got redirected to, and what malware payload actually got pulled down in this particular transaction. So basically what I had done here, just to make a long story short, is I'm going to take that evidence2 file and I'm just going to pull it into Wireshark. So I'm just going to cheat and I'm going to pull in evidence2.pcap into Wireshark, and we're just going to walk through it. So easy enough here. This probably about 3,100 packets. So what I did is, after hearing that, you can take this into a sandbox, visit the site in your sandbox on your own, capture the traffic in the background as you visit the website, and see what the behavior of that redirect is by that packet capture. So if you have a company and somebody's saying, you know what, this DNS has been hijacked, I think this is how our exploit kit's coming in, not really sure. Spin up the packet capture, visit the site for yourself, verify this is what's going on, because you need to pass some rules along to the folks who run Snort or whatever, or start blocking some traffic. So before you start shutting down ports, capture that traffic and see what happens. But do it in a sandbox so you don't pwn yourself. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to run a, let's basically find the host name and the MAC address for our IP address by going and looking at the NetBIOS statistics. So there's another way you can do this. You can search a udp.port, and we can do EQ, which is udp.port equals 67. So that should pull out all the DHCP requests and forms here. You can see that there's a client address in there of 192.168.137.81. Okay? So basically what we're pulling out there is not just the client IP address. So if you want to dig down into here, I go into the actual Ethernet 2 frame and the Internet where am I looking at here? Need to dig in to find the correct place. Oh, UDP, right? Nope. Where are you? I'm looking at this really big screen here, so bear with me here while I pull this down. My mouse is not very responsive to me today. There we go. So there in the frame there's a source IP that's showing it's coming from a Dell with a MAC address, a client MAC address of 5C F9 DD6A BD22. So there's our source IP address and our IP address of this particular computer here if we need it down the road. Another thing that I'm going to look for in this particular capture as well is to see what the machine name is, because these are DHCP requests. So any DHCP requests that I have in there might give me indicators of what this machine name actually was. So I'm trying to dig it out here, see if I can find it under the source IP address, maybe. No, where are you at? Let's see. Trying to find under one of these. Here we go. Under the. See if the machine name was given here. Here's a qualified domain name. Yeah, here we go. So there's the fully qualified domain name. You really have to dig for these, but the client name for this one's Bartow PC. So that's Billy's PC name. You can probably easily get that from the machine, but I was trying to find that client name in there. So you could easily apply that as a filter as well, and you can say that bootp filter for DHCP actually comes down to Bartow PC. So we can kind of jot that down and use that for future reference. So we have the MAC address, the IP address, and the machine name, just for verification's sake. Another thing that I can search for on top of that is the MDNS stats as well. And I can see what IP address was registered in the switch. And I can see there the Bartow PC took an IP address of 192.168.137.81. Now, if I want to see what time that came through, and that's important to me, another thing I can do is I can change my view in Wireshark. So I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to change my time display format here, because I don't want to see what seconds they came through. That's not important to me. I want to see the UTC time and date. So let's do the UTC date and time of day. That's important to me. So I can see that that particular, it's on 2/15/2015 at, looks like 23:29 UTC time. Something important to note about UTC as well. Sift stores its time format in UTC time format. You can see right now it's showing up as 8:43, which is roughly 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 5 hours, so that's true UTC time. Why is it important to do any kind of log aggregation or even packet analysis in UTC time? For beginner folks in here.
Folks could be in different time zones.
Exactly. You're working at a multinational company. In this case, remember the scenario in of itself was looking at the UK-based operations, right? So UK-based operations, you can pretty much determine they're going to be 5, if not 6 hours ahead of us at any given point in time, depending on whether we're in daylight savings or not. So keep that in mind, especially with UTC time format. So that's why I just use UTC time, not have to worry about the time translations, and that literally translates that time as UTC. So there's the machine name that pops up. Next thing I want to do is I want to see any traffic that was requested in this packet capture. So I'm going to do an http://request. That's another thing that I can look for. And this is any traffic that stuff was requested, or an HTTP request was made. So if I've queried a website or a DNS, it will show me what actually came back in that DNS query, or actually was redirecting me to. And you can see, for you guys that are used to have built anything on WordPress, what do you see here? All right, we've got some WordPress content, and then all of a sudden, some really weird stuff happens here. It kind of sits out of the woodwork. We go to an index.php, and then to some GET requests with some really funky text in it. I don't know what better way to explain this, and you're probably looking at me and saying, man, he's just an idiot. Some of these funky text strings are very indicative of malware transactions. Mainly because, remember, normal web builders like to systematically name the folders in a lot of these web servers that they build on. And if you've ever been around a web builder or web designer, they're very anal on, especially when they're building WordPress content, about how stuff is laid out. And when you see stuff out of the ordinary with a lot of random text strings, sometimes that may be indicative that you may be redirecting into a malware package. I don't know what better way to say that, just by viewing it. But notice down probably, let's see here. Let's say about right here. Let's see if I can pull that up, where it actually shows the website that's being requested. So what I can do here is I'm looking at straight up IPs right now, but I want to see what website that it went out to. So one thing that I can do is I can go to preferences, and I can change my preferences to basically show me the domain name. So if you go under edit, this is by default that they do this. So edit preferences. In this case, 9 times out of 10 I don't do this, but if you click on resolve network IP addresses, it will show you where those redirects occur. And you can see now it shows me the steakhouse website now, rather than trying to blur my vision there looking at IPs. What do you notice in some of that content when it gets down to the point that it starts redirecting to some of that random text? So we go from Wolfgang Steakhouse to this really weird .co.kr, and then what happens? Something else that looks kind of funky, right? It's not rocket science. You can see that that steakhouse website gets redirected to this funky looking domain name here. Fastflux DNSs, guys. That is what's happening out there. A lot of these malware packages, they'll publish these really funky looking, qualified these domain names, and then they'll host them out that way, and then they'll move over and change them over to something else and do the redirects before they get caught. But you can see there's a watch.php, an HTML page that does some stuff. I mean, you can see the redirect happen right there before your eyes. And it started, honestly, way up here. You can see it get redirected to this co.kr page, go back to the restaurant page, and then all of a sudden, there's your redirect. It gets redirected to a PHP page that literally, down in the bottom there, if you were to look at that page itself, what is in that page embedded into that frame? And this is down, it's an accepted application that's running JavaScript. And it's referring from Wolfgang Steakhouse. There's your JavaScript running right there. This is the indicator of the nuclear exploit kit. What's happening there is that it's referring that package, and then these files down here, what that stuff is right here, is that's literally the unpacking of the exploit kit onto the compromised machine. That's what's going on. Now, how do we determine that that's happening? I'm telling you that's happening, but I haven't verified that that's happening. So there's a couple of other things I can do here to make it look a little bit nicer. Let's look at this I'm going to pull it up so we don't have to cross your eyes looking at it, but I put in the slides here for you. So I followed, you go down here and I'll show you what these, because I've already marked them up for you. So, oh, I got rid of them all. I keep forgetting I'm in a virtual machine here. Sorry, guys. Pull these slides up here. So I followed oh, I shouldn't have full screened that, should I? It rescales that screen. So basically what I got going on here, if I follow that transaction there, you'll see that in that packet capture, you can see the flash exploit that's sent by the nuclear exploit kit. You can see that the host is showing up right there. So in the HTTP request header, you see the version of Flash Player used by the vulnerable computer, which in this case was running 11.9.900.117. In Flash exploits, it's important to know you'll either see ZWS or CWS as the first three characters after the HTTP response header. So what could I do back in Wireshark here to search for this Flash-based exploit? Yeah. You can do like ZWS. Don't really see anything there. I can try it. You can see that the frame it's not really pulling much back, but it may be because I didn't capitalize that. So let's see if that changes the scope of it. I haven't tried the frame contains. So yeah, there's the ZWS. There's the Flash exploit running right there, just by doing that. So you can see that payload there. And if I follow that TCP stream, I'll see all that stuff pop up there. So basically, down in there somewhere, the very first option, or somewhere in there, that's that Flash exploit and that JavaScript unpacking itself. That's all malware there, guys. Or the good majority of it is. That's the malware package coming in. You can see another Git request there, back to that I like llama. I mean, it's just, it's packed with it. And these are just a number of different files coming in. And none of it can be decoded because, and you see this stuff here too. I mean, this is all indicative of a malware package, especially an exploit kit. These random characters that are packed in there. But the easy way to figure out if it is, look for stuff like that. Because if you do your homework on that, you can see there's your transaction that the Flash exploit unpacks itself. Another thing about exploit kits, Nuclear EK or Nuclear Exploit Kit actually sends a Silverlight exploit. You're all probably familiar with Silverlight. It's not heavily used like it used to. The Silverlight exploits are archives, so the first two characters after the HTTP response headers are actually PK, and then it unpacks the Silverlight exploit as a DLL file. So it's almost like a zip file in the way that it unpacks itself. And you can see the name of the archive there, or see the name of the file in the archive. So this is just indicative of malware. You can see these ASCII strings. They're usually obfuscated by just these random characters that are repeated over and over and over and over again. So basically what they do is they just XOR the ASCII string so it flies under the radar of a lot of anti-malware programs. So that's honestly what's happening there. Now, if I want to break this down more, just to kind of stay on the question I'm asking here, is the person web browsing? Obviously, yes. Where did they go? What website did the user look at? So the question was, okay, where did we get this exploit from? So if I clear out that exploit, what's the answer to that particular question using this as reference? Remember the steakhouse that they went to. So there's your steakhouse, that wolfgangsteakhouse.co.kr, and this got redirected to that malware package. So it wasn't anything that the user did. It was the user visiting a compromised steakhouse webpage. That's what makes it scary. The thing that unpacked the malware and caused the malware to propagate is that they were using Silverlight and an outdated version of Flash. Think about your network there. Think about where your network sits. This could be a problem. What if I want to know more about this exploit and somebody asks me, is this really an exploit? Do I need to know if this is an exploit? Or if I can't find any of those headers on it, what else can I do with this? So another sure shot way to find out if this is truly malware or it's not, you can go to File. Remember yesterday in Wireshark I had you showed you how to export objects out of Wireshark, pictures or whatever. If you go to export objects and do HTTP objects, check this out. Where do you think our malware is going to be at in this? Steakhouse, steakhouse, steakhouse. Some PNG stuff. And then all of a sudden the steakhouse stops, and then we start with this I like llama. So what do you think? Where do you think our malware packages are going to start here? The ones that stick out like a sore thumb, right? The I like llama. I'm going to save all of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Save All, and I'm just going to put these. Where could I put them? On my desktop? I'll just put them on my desktop. So I'll save these on my desktop. I'm going to make a new folder on my desktop, and I'll call it malware files. Because these are the HTTP, rebuilt HTTP files in Wireshark exporting out that I'm going to analyze. So I'm going to save those on my desktop, choose that folder. It's like some files cannot be saved. Awesome. Okay. So now I have files to dig through. Now remember, these are full HTML files. So which one should I probably go after or scan to see if I'm indeed looking at an exploit kit package here? There's some stuff there. Fielder's choice, right? Let's do this.
Does it matter the extension type of file?
Some of these don't even have extensions. So I'm just going to use some common knowledge here. A site that I love that's really good to use is virustotal.com. Never use VirusTotal. A lot of people complain and harp and moan about it, but all in all, it is a pretty good resource to go to. So what it does is it will scan files, it'll scan URLs, it'll scan a lot of things that are indicative, and will scan it for what it considers to be malware. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into those exported files that I just exported out. I'm going to pick one, let's see here. Let's just pick one of these and see if I have anything. Which one should I go after? Maybe this one?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's do it. Upload and scan the file. 060. So it looked like that I might have had some stuff there. Didn't really see anything. So what else could I go after there that might be?
Maybe one of the image files.
What about that PHP page? That was that PHP redirect that we saw there. So let's see if that gives us anything. Sometimes what we see may not be. Well, let's see. Nothing. So individual file scans may not be giving us much here. So I can go through these and look and see. All right. Well, here's a zip file. Let's see what that zip file does. It's kind of odd that I'm seeing a zip file in a packet transfer. Boom! Right? There's a Trojan, an exploit, 40 of 58 different antivirus clients identify that as a malicious script. So this kind of tells you what stuff to stay away from, right? But that's pretty indicative there. You can also look at the details of what that might be, and you can see that that is a Silverlight application package that I just talked about. So it'll tell you that. So that's pretty cool to do that. You can see any relations to other stuff that has been uploaded, and you can see if anyone in the community has identified it. But you can see that each malware package, or each Avast, identifies it as just a generic package. Some of these actually call it what it is. So you might see that it's a Trojan, or you might even see it's a Silverlight exploit. Some of them really are very very specific on how they identify that. If you're not sure, let's just say you're not even sure about the files. Another thing that you can do here is you can go back to VirusTotal and upload the PCAP of what you just captured.
Yes, kind of go back to.
Yeah. Let me go back here.
No, that's it. One actually gives you a CVE, so that gives you a lot. If you look up that CVE,
Yeah,
look up that CVE number. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, good catch there. So, I mean, you may not even know what you're up against here. I mean, this is just intel gathering. So, you can go back and let's actually do what he just said. Let's copy that and let's search out that bulletin and see what that bulletin actually says. My goodness, I mean, Rapid7 has stuff on it. The JP Morgan Chase breach. I mean, it's real stuff. I mean, and it's very simple to dig this stuff out. So, but let's say that you want to go at an even higher level. Another thing that you can do is go back to VirusTotal, and you can upload PCAP files into that as well. So you can scan the compromised site, download it, do a packet capture of that redirect, and then go into take the PCAP file, which, where did I put that at? I put that. So I'm just going to upload evidence too, and chances are this has been scanned. The antivirus clients do not catch anything in the PCAP, but what do you notice that kind of sets out of the ordinary here? The IDS, the Suricata and the snort alerts. Now it'll show up that if I go down and look under details, it'll tell me what snort alert flags it threw here. If you go over here, and what those snort alerts actually were. And you can see why snort threw an alert there. So, outdated Windows Flash is what they're saying there. But look what Suricata says there. That is actually a shockwave nuclear EK. So, 2 seconds. You don't even have to have Suricata. You can pull it in there and see what Suricata has to say about it, or snort. So if you guys are running snort or Suricata in your network, I'm assuming some of you all are. I'm sure if you find out if you are, most networks do have them. So if you have a snort alert that's thrown, ask your network admin, say, has any traffic thrown any snort alerts as of late? So you can ask your SOC guy, hey, do we have a snort alert? Yes, as a matter of fact, we did. We got one 3 hours ago. What did that snort alert say? Okay, well, what machine does it go back to? Okay, it goes back to this machine. So I can go to the machine level and see what was redirected, or sandbox it and visit the same website. And then I can pass that off to the systems guys and say, hey, this steakhouse needs blocked, and these machines have been compromised. So it's just really a lot of putting puzzles together. It's a lot of connecting the dots and using what's out there. VirusTotal is a really cool tool to kind of add into the mix, especially in network forensics. Just taking a PCAP and throwing in 5 minutes, we can find a lot of stuff. So, any questions on exploit kits or anything like that? Yay, nay, no, yay, so, yeah. So, my contact information, if you want to get in contact with me, I put a bunch of my cards up here. Of course, Iron Geek, Adrian will be posting this video online. So, by all means, if you want to go back and follow this again, you can certainly go back and view some of this stuff. If you have any issues in your networks or run across any problems or need just some extra eyes in an investigation, by all means contact me. I know very little. I know about this much of what a lot of people know in the field, but I have access to a lot of those people. So I can always bounce questions off other people and ask them and call a broker and get an answer to you. Because that's what we're here for. That's our ultimate goal, to figure stuff out. That's why I love these cons. I love this particular conference in general, because I can get to connect to you guys and ask you guys questions too. But, by all means, feel free to get in contact with me. So that's all I got. A little bit after 4. We finished up a little bit early, so go out and hack some voting machines and make some blinky badges if they have any. Thank you guys.